used in heaven today.
Good evening, Patterson. Welcome to Unmuted with Kimmeshia. Come on in the room. Let your friends and family know that we are live on Unmuted. We are here today. Patterson, New Jersey, stand up. Happy Easter to all those who celebrate Easter. But tonight we have a very, very special episode tonight. We have a wonderful guest on tonight that's going to answer to some of the questions we've had about the current state of the Board of Ed and the school closures. So come on in the room. Welcome. We are unmuted. Patterson, New Jersey, stand up. I encourage you to please like and share this live. If you're not following me, please, I ask you to go to my Unmuted page and follow my page for all the updates of things that are going on within the great city of Patterson, New Jersey. Community, stand up. Patterson, New Jersey, stand up. We are unmuted. And we are here today with a special guest that's going to answer some of the questions we have. If you're in the audience today, let me see you with a like. Give me a like. If you can hear me okay, give me a like. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're here. Let me know right in the comments. I am unmuted. I am so happy and excited to be on today to share with our community and to have our guests that we have on the show today. Patterson, New Jersey, stand up. We are officially unmuted. This is our third episode, our third taping. We debuted March 8th, and we are now, this is April 5th, and our third episode. And I'm just so excited for all the things that are happening with Unmuted and just everyone's excitement and support of this platform. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you. Come on in the room. Let your friends and family know that we are unmuted, that we are here to make sure our voices are heard. Unmuted is a platform for the people, considering all the things that I've heard from the people. And this platform is specifically about us getting the answers that we deserve, that we need so we can make informed decisions when it comes to voting, when it comes to, these meetings, our taxes. We ask the hard questions so that you don't have to. We want to make sure that you have the information you need to make informed decisions. We don't want to leave anything to propaganda. We want everyone to have the answers. Who's in charge of what? Who's the person that we should be contacting? Who is responsible for this and that? No more confusion, but straight facts, accountability. And this is what Unmuted is all about. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited for today's episode and the guests that we have on today. If you're in the comments, just give me a thumbs up. Make sure I know that you can hear me okay. I want to make sure I'm not speaking too loudly. But I'm very excited today for our guests. You are watching Unmuted. And if you don't know me, I am your host. I am the host, Kimmeshia L. Rogers Jones. And I want to thank you for your support. Patterson, New Jersey, stand up. We are Unmuted. This is Unmuted. We meet on Sundays, the first and third Sunday of every month. The first Sunday, we have conversations and talk about the things that are happening in the city, getting answers. And on the third Sunday, the first Sunday we have a guest, and the third Sunday is when we do conversations about things that are happening in the city. And I do my best to get the information, to get the answers that you need. And today is the first Sunday of April, and we have a very special guest that will be joining us today. And I'm very excited to have him join. So I'm asking you to like, share. If you're in the room, share with your family and friends. Let them know that we are here on this Easter Sunday, and we don't take any days off. Our community deserves answers. Our community deserves to be informed. And so Unmuted is committed to making sure that you get the information that you need so that we can make informed decisions. So if you're here, thank you. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're here. Let me know that you're with me. Let me know that you are unmuted, that you are a Pattersonian ready to stand up for your community and get the information and the things that we need out to the community. There's been so much going on. And I want to really, I'm trying to share. I want to really get some answers. For most of us, we know that recently with the Board of Education, we've had some school closures. They're talking about tax hikes and job loss as well. And so on tonight, I thought it very important that our guest be someone who can answer the questions that we have. Give us the answers that we need. And so I'm very excited today to have someone that, is not just anyone, but someone who has been in those rooms, someone who has been there making those decisions, voting on those things that matter to us, specifically when it comes to the Board of Education. On Wednesday, there was a meeting that I was present for. And, we saw a lot of things. If you watch my page, I dropped some videos today. I did a couple of interviews with some parents and youth within our community who are very concerned about the current state of the Board of Education and the recent vote for the 4 schools to be closed. And so today, our special guest today is none other than Board of Education Commissioner Kenneth Simmons. I'm going to bring him on. Let's welcome him. Kenny, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I did that with my mistake. Sorry. Thank you for being here, Kenny. Thank you for agreeing to be present and answer the questions that our community, give them the answers that they need. They may not be happy with the answers, but these are questions that have been asked, and we want to make sure that they get those answers. Kenny Simmons has been on the Board of Education. For those of you who don't know, I believe he said 16 years now.
16 years.
Wow, that is you're the longest commissioner you've been here the longest over all of the commissioners there, correct?
Yep.
Wow. So you've seen a lot.
Absolutely.
Yes, you've seen a lot. And you know what, Kenny, we're gonna get right into it because we see on social media, and Kenny, if you don't know, the main reason I did Unmuted, one was because I wanted the community to really have a platform where we can get answers. Mm-hmm. And on social media, we see so much. People, it's not correct information. It's half information. It's, some of it's propaganda and scare tactics. And so our community, for the most part, goes a lot, they go uninformed. And right. So I thought it was important that with everything that's happening and with the Board of Education, with the school closings and all of the proposals with tax hikes and things like that we have someone that can answer to those questions and mm-hmm. give people real answers to these questions and not just what we think. Right. Even I attended the meeting on Wednesday, and I could report back what I saw, but even I still can't give them clarity
Hmm.
on everything that was presented. And so we're gonna get right into it. Kenny, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
And so one of the things, the main thing right now is the school closures.
Hmm.
And you've gone on the record and said that the decision to close the choice schools, I want to quote you. You said asinine and illegal. And with you being on the board of education, many people will say, okay, well, the assumption is that, well, you're on the board of education, you're a commissioner, this is your doing, right? But I want you to speak to that and answer this question. Um, if this vote has already gone through, and you're saying that because it was not without the vote of the school board. So from what you've said is that it's illegal because the it went through without school board vote or.
Right. Right.
And from what we've understanding, the vote is done. This is not a question of is the schools are going to be closed. That the decision has been made and the it's moving forward. If this is illegal, why isn't someone standing up and trying to stop this? Why has this been allowed to happen? And I think this is one question that the community has. If you being a commissioner, a trusted um, person on the board, you've been there 16 years. If it's illegal, why are we allowing this to happen? If you can answer to that.
So, because initially, when the superintendent, so I found out just like parents found out.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was started receiving calls, text messages, and emails from parents about schools being closed. And I'm like, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? Um, I then see the email that the superintendent had just sent out to parents. Like
Mm-hmm.
so we received the email at the same time parents received the email, which is crazy in
Wow.
itself. Um,
Okay.
so it when I say it's illegal, there's a process that you have to go through
Mm-hmm.
um, to close a school in New Jersey. And so what the narrative has been is that the board in 2020 approved these
Mm-hmm.
closures, and that's not true. That is just not
Okay.
true. So what the board voted on in 2020, or I think it was 2021, actually, we voted on a long range facilities plan,
Mm-hmm.
which the district has to do every 5 years, right? But that long range facilities plan, like there'll be things in there like we want a new building, we want a new school. Those types of things are in there because it's about capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that's approved, that doesn't approve the things that are proposed, right? But I want to be clear that that long range facilities plan in 2021, there was no mention of closing schools. The only thing that talks about is the middle school model.
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation, the actual beginning of that conversation started in 2012. So 2012, we begin this conversation because school five, I believe it was school five,
Right.
a bunch of schools on that side of town were overcrowded. Um, we knew we were getting Hani Awadala, and we
Mm-hmm.
knew we were getting School 16. So those two schools probably came online probably about 2014, 2015, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the only school being talked about closed at that point was School 14. And at the time, School 14, I think, was 114 years old. I think it was like one bathroom. So it just wasn't conducive to keep it open. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we went through the process. It was approved by the board. Um, and what's also important to note is that we were under state control. So
Mm-hmm.
the superintendent at the time was basically the state. So fast forward, we
Yeah.
do long range facilities plan. We're talking about the middle school model. If you remember last year, the parents at Hani Awadala and School 9 were out protesting that
Right.
those schools becoming K through 5 and middle school.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
we voted on that last year. Um, 5 of us voted no. Um, no, 4 of us voted no. Myself, Commissioner Freeman, McCall, and T
Mm-hmm.
voted no. Now we move forward, fast forward again, once we get this letter, and we're talking about these closures. And I'm like, we didn't vote on this. This is not what we approved. But that
Right.
narrative has always been that the previous board approved it, which still doesn't hold up because boards are not bound by decisions made by previous boards. So they can always be changed.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there was never a mention about closing any of these schools. So the superintendent did this on her own. I say it's illegal because there is a process. And once you go through the process, you still have to get permission from the state to close the school. So even after a board vote,
Mm-hmm.
it has to go to the county superintendent, which has to give a recommendation. And then after the county superintendent gives a recommendation, it has to go to the Department of Ed facilities to get approval.
Okay.
Long process to closing the school.
So the decision for the schools to be closed is done, right? We're moving forward with the closing.
Well,
And
hopefully we're not.
well,
Um,
so that's my next question, because if you're saying this is illegal,
mhm,
that there's a process to this, and they've skipped over the process.
mhm.
So then what next? What
So,
do we do now?
so myself and Commissioner Teague filed a petition with the DOE.
Mm-hmm.
We asked for, so we filed 2. We filed 1 to outline how it's what steps were missed,
Mm-hmm.
and have the state look at it. But then we also filed a petition for emergent relief. And with
Okay.
emergent relief, if granted, what it does is it stops everything, and nothing happens until we go through everything, which could take a year. It could take 2, depending on how long the court deals with it.
Okay.
Um, so that's what we actually have those oral arguments tomorrow.
Okay. So this is happening tomorrow.
That's happening tomorrow.
Okay.
So hopefully, we are successful in our oral arguments and it stops. Um, what's also important to know is if the vote, as the superintendent says, if this was approved in
Mm-hmm.
2021, why would you take a vote at our meeting on Wednesday?
Right.
So there was a vote on Wednesday to do that, and I tried to explain to board members the very thing that she kept telling you that we approved in 21, she's
Mm-hmm.
asking you to do tonight. So if we did it in 21, why are we taking this
Right.
vote?
Right.
Right.
Now, this is the super. I mean, I don't like to assume, but I would think she knows, and you can see in the comments. One of the viewers here, Michelle Kinchin, she says the superintendent knows there's a process to close the schools. Does she know that? Because it seems like she's moving knowingly what she's doing is okay to do. Does she know from what you're telling us? Does she know that that's the process?
I would, I mean, I would hope that she does, but if she
Right.
does, it makes it even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the process just wasn't done, and the only reason there was a vote on Wednesday is because she was just served the day before. She was
Okay.
served with the petition
Okay.
and the court appearance. So
Okay.
she was served that day before. So
Okay.
all of a sudden, when we show up to the meeting, actually I got the resolution
Mm-hmm.
about an hour or 2 before the meeting.
That you guys were going to vote on it.
Hmm.
Okay. So before then, before her being served, there was no plan for you guys to vote. It was just going to go forward.
She was just going to move forward. Hmm.
Okay. So in some way, she made what we know to from what you're telling us that was illegal. She went and did the legal process and had got a vote.
So I don't know that would hold up because of the time, right?
Okay.
She already made the announcement
Mm-hmm.
in January. They've already started moving students in the
Mm-hmm.
um, so it doesn't change the fact that you made this decision prior
Mm-hmm.
to a board vote, prior to any approval from the executive county
Mm-hmm.
superintendent. And it is my understanding that they're attempting to talk to the executive county and superintendent now, um, to do some things, to get approval to do certain things with those buildings,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not sure that that's going to fly, because
Okay.
again, you started this process wrong.
Right. So let's, what I've seen on social media, a lot of residents, when they make post the newspaper articles and things like that, I've seen a lot of residents say things like, well, and I know we touched on this before a little bit before, but that you were part of the prior votes when it came to this, like you led us into this process. And so when people hear you speaking out so boldly now, the question is why now? When from what they believe or they know, you were part of the vote that brought them here, brought us to this place. Why are you speaking out so boldly now? Why wasn't that something that you did before? Because it's like almost those votes fed us into what we see happening right now. What's your response to that?
It's just not true, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, we never took a vote on closing schools. As a matter of fact, there are board minutes from December 2020 meeting
Mm-hmm.
where there was a recommendation from the company that comes in to gather your um, demographic information.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they wanted to fake make school one a neighborhood school, and the board said no, we're not doing that,
Okay.
because it's a higher performing school.
Mm-hmm.
It's parent choice, and what do you do with those parents? Like, so we never moved. That was,
Mm-hmm.
it was just a flat out no, we're not doing that, right? So me, the narrative that I voted for this, what I voted for was a long range facilities plan. And
Mm-hmm.
what the superintendent has done is say that the long range facilities plan gives you approval to do things. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the truth. It doesn't do that. You still have to go come back. Anything you changed with the school
Mm-hmm.
has to be a board vote, right? There has
Okay.
to be community input, like, and so those steps are missed, especially the community input part, right? So if we go back to 2012 when these conversations started, the conversation started about middle school in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
We hired a company. Our first vote was 3 years later, because that's how long it took to go through everything, do your community engagement,
Mm-hmm.
um, gather your information, and then, you know, in 2015 when we voted, and that was about um, Joe Top at the time.
Okay.
So that we knew that middle school was coming. So we voted for that to become a middle school.
Okay, so one of the things we see on social media too, I mean, because regardless of whose children are in the school or whatever, I don't think any school closing is a good idea unless we can
Hmm.
really, make it make sense, right? But a lot of people have stated that the reason why there's such an uproar about these certain schools, because they, for years, this has been the school of what some would call the elite of Patterson, those um, people in power, leadership, directors, some council people, all of those different things. Now, these schools are school choice. So explain what school choice is so people understand, because I think a lot of people, the mindset is that, oh, we're only making a big deal because this is such and such kid and their mom and dad does this and only those kids are allowed at their school. Can you explain what school choice is, and is that the truth of it? Is that why we're making a big fuss, or explain why this is not a good thing? Because why isn't it good to close these four schools regardless of the population? It's not huge schools, these are smaller schools. What is school choice? Is it just the elite? And then why is it important that we don't close these schools?
So New Jersey has what it's called interdistrict interdistrict school choice, which
Mm-hmm.
means, so, and that it'll bring me to something else. Um, but you have to get permission from the state to establish choice schools.
Okay.
And what the choice schools are schools that are just performing better. So the notion that it's just for elite, it's a process. You have to apply. In some cases, you have to be interviewed. The
Mhm.
student has to be interviewed, um, and then it's like a lottery. So and then they choose people based on that. Um, but the idea that it's for the elite, like so, my daughter went to Norman Ware. My sons went to AHA. I
Mhm.
wasn't on the board when
Okay.
when, when those when they went. At the time at 2 o'clock in the morning for my daughter, I was standing outside of Norman Ware
Right. Okay.
waiting until 7:30 for them to open the door so I could register her.
Mhm.
But it's not for the elite. Um, and so the reason you don't close, particularly these four schools, they are our higher performing schools. Norman Ware is the second highest performing school in the district,
Mm.
second only to the G&T, Gifted and Talented. And it's ironic that that program is not being right. So if you're
Okay.
gonna do it, do it,
Across the board.
do it
Yeah.
across the board. But that
Mhm.
would also mean not just the elementaries. It would also mean Rosa Parks. It would also mean international,
Oh
right?
wow. Because
So
all of them fall under school choice.
they are choice, right?
Wow.
They're choice schools. So it's unfair to take a kid from Norman S. Ware
Mm.
or Alexander Hamilton or School One because they are all higher performing. Even Young Men's Leadership is a
Right.
higher performing, and that's a different argument. And I understand why some people talk about Young Men's Leadership,
Mhm.
but we have not had those conversations, right? And so until we can have those conversations, like do it the right way. But the
Right.
reason you don't do it is because you're going to take a kid from Norman Ware, for example, and that kid may end up at school 10.
Mhm.
School 10 is currently in status, which means the state at some point um, may very well close it. It's ranked as one of the worst schools in the state. So why would
Mhm.
you do that to a kid?
Right.
Like, so it just doesn't make sense. Instead of
So
trying to duplicate what's
right.
happening at the other four, it doesn't make sense because it's not going to bring equity. It's just not going to
Mhm.
do that because students don't move in groups of 24.
Well, and that was my next question because why, if those four schools are performing so well, and the fear is that we put them in other schools that are low performance schools, why aren't we able to mimic what we're seeing at these schools within all of our schools? Why isn't all of our schools performing at this
Mhm,
caliber as the other four,
mhm.
and international and Rosa Parks? Like, what's the disconnect there that we need this type of choice within our district? Why can't we mimic that throughout the district?
But that should be the conversation. How do we
Mhm.
mimic that? How do we like so for at school 10, for instance, we started last year, last year or the year before last. Um, they started having half day on Friday so that um, teachers can do professional development, right?
Mhm.
And so that we could try to begin mimicking those things that are happening
Mhm.
in other schools. Um, but even that doesn't, like, you're just gonna stop that. Like you
Right.
don't give it enough time to start working.
Yeah.
It's just disruption.
And I see questions rolling in the community.
Mhm,
Usually I just do a segment with their questions, but they're rolling in. So I'm going to
mhm.
highlight some of them. So Shauna's asking, and she said, explain the long range plan. What?
So
So go ahead.
the long range facilities plan is you have to do one every 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The district has to do one by law. So what it does is it looks at your facilities,
Mm-hmm.
um, your needs for those facilities, and basically it's a wish list, if you will, right?
Okay.
So and when AHA is mentioned in the long range facility plan, and so is Norman S. Ware. Norman for AHA in the long range facilities plan was to get out of the lease
Mm-hmm.
for that building, because at the time we were leasing it, and find a permanent home.
Okay.
For Norman S. Ware, it was to demolish the building and rebuild it in the same place. right?
Okay.
So those things can only happen if you have the funding for it. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to give the state, show the state that you have a plan. You're looking at the demographics. You're looking at trends, like you're looking at development around the city,
Mm-hmm.
and all of those things. You have to show data for all of that and send it to the state and get approval. But
Okay.
it doesn't, it's not authorization to do any of
Mm-hmm.
that work. It's just a plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Another question a community member has, Carla T says, can you walk us through the phases of transitioning to middle school, to the middle school model? And what stage are we in right now? What she said, what's supposed to take place versus what is taking place?
So when we started talking about the middle school model, again, this conversation started in 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was because we were overcrowded. And at the time, we had 30,000 students, and the
Okay.
projection was for us to have many more, much more, right? Um, our enrollment has since, we've lost some students, especially we didn't have this many charter schools either then,
Right. Right.
right? So the reality is, if we didn't have the charters, we would have nowhere to put these kids.
Wow. We'd be busting at the seams.
Yep,
Hmm.
right. So um, right now, the student superintendent is saying we're in phase three, because it started in 2012, and
Mm-hmm.
then last year she moved with School 9 and Hani Awadala, making one a middle school, making one a K through 5.
Okay.
Um, this year, so there's a lot complicated. There's much more with the moves that she wants to make this year, right? So historically, we know the students from the 10 the school 10 area and the students from the school 21 area don't
Mm-hmm.
get along. Those neighborhoods have traditionally not gotten along,
Correct.
right? And so the question, and even when I'm asking, are you prepared to deal with
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen when you put these two groups together,
Correct.
right? There is no plan for that. I haven't heard one to date. Um, and so it doesn't mean just because this conversation started 14, 15 years ago, it
Mm-hmm.
does not mean that we need to continue down this path, right?
Correct.
We realistically should be looking to see if the middle school model works in the urban setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have Joe Taub, who still has discipline issues, right? What we My proposal would have been to make sure that Joe Taub is performing the way that it needs to perform. We're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with We have the supports in place for the disciplinary issues, um, and it's not performing the way it's to be performed. So the question
Right.
is, do we even need to continue down this road, right? I mean, yep, I voted for the middle school plan
You did.
in 2012,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was based on the information I had at the time. This is different. The city's different. The
Okay.
city's different today than it was in 2020, 2021.
So what you're saying is that from that time up to now, we haven't had any updated conversations to discuss where we are
No,
now,
no,
and if we need to make any changes to that plan we had 13 years ago.
right, right. And people like to compare, people like to blame Eileen Schaefer for this. It-
Well,
She
she
wasn't,
was
she
the
wasn't the superintendent. Well, she
okay.
was the superintendent in 2012. Dr. Evans was.
Okay.
So that's where it started. Um, and while she was the superintendent, we didn't move any further.
Mhm.
The only movement was Joe Taub because it was a brand new building.
Well, maybe could we have been having those conversations while she was superintendent to lead us up to this place now? Because there's like a long gap of nothing really happening.
Right. So that I don't the intention was, although we talked about the plan talks about middle schools around this district,
Hmm.
nothing moved forward because we knew we had to get a handle on everything else.
Okay.
So unfortunately, she was just the superintendent when our realistically our first real middle school opened. which is Joe Top.
Okay. You know, the community wants, we want to put blame somewhere. We want to put it with someone, right? Or people. Dr. Newell is the current superintendent. And from what you're telling us, it seems like she hasn't really done her own research to see if that plan works in present time. Um, so, you know, what I want to go here
Mhm.
and then move on to another piece. But what, with all of this happening, you saying you guys are going to be in court tomorrow, that this was a legal procedure and it should have never happened. But it's, from what we see as of Wednesday, it's going through, right? Even though we have these court
Mhm.
things in place and things, you
Right.
guys have filed your, you know, your discoveries or whatever, but it's going through, right? What can the parents do now? Because it's going through. They, you know, they, can they go to court? Are they gonna go to court? What what would you suggest or encourage parents to do to assist you guys, or you know, just to try to get this turned around? What can
Mhm.
parents do? Or do we
But
need to just wait for what's gonna happen?
so I know there are some parents have filed a petition, but again, that petition process is long, which is why I filed a petition for emergent relief,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could get in front of the judge as soon as possible,
Mm-hmm.
to hopefully get it stopped. And just based on, you know, based on what I know and my understanding of the law, um, we should come out fine. I think
Okay.
the only thing the district can say at this point, which is what they've been saying, is, well, now they'll say the board voted on it because
Yes.
they voted on it on Wednesday, but it's still after the fact, right?
Right.
Um, it's after you made the announcement. It's after you
Mm-hmm.
started making movement in the
Correct.
system. It's so it doesn't change the
It's
fact
like
that
the
you broke
cleanup
the
of,
law
right. Mm-hmm.
initially. It doesn't change that. So,
Okay.
but parents have to just be more vocal, more present, right? So, but you see that at the meetings because these schools, this is where you have
Right.
your highest parental engagement is at all of these schools that are closing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think even if you even if she would have said, you know what, let's make AHA a middle school, Norman Swear a K through 5. I don't think you don't break up the school community as much, right? So because the K through 5ers will still be for the most part together. They'll just have a new group
Mm-hmm.
of K through 5ers that they joined with, and the same
Mm-hmm.
for the middle schools. But that was because there was no conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't get to flesh these things out.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that that clarity. So I want to get into the tax hike.
Hmm.
Okay. So you guys voted on a 8% tax hike, and between the schools closing, services for our kids are being slashed, the proposed 200 um job cuts within the Board of Education, where's the money going? You, like, how do you guys really say, okay, we need this 8% tax increase with all of the decline in services that our kids are receiving? How do you account for that? Where's this money going?
So I'll start with this, right? Because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times what people see is the size of our budget, right? So our
Mm-hmm.
budget is $850 million, right? Off the top, we send 178 million to charter. We send um, a little over 40 million to PCTI, right? Um, Healthcare is at about 130 million, and with an expected 30% increase this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it leaves very little once the bills are paid. It leaves very little money um, to do what you need to do for students and facilities. That said, our when people see the number like 8%, it doesn't necessarily mean 8%. Um, it doesn't have to trans. It doesn't have to affect homeowners in that way. If this is making sense, our tax levy is around 80 million. It should be 160 million
Mm-hmm.
because the district hadn't raised taxes in almost 30 years. So our 8% is only 1% of the city's budget.
Okay.
So
Because
the
that was another question. What percentage of that will go to the tax bill?
right.
Hmm.
So it's for us, it's we're only 1% of the city's budget. The larger issue is that we have all of these abated buildings, these tax abatements.
Right.
So so the city will get 95% of that. The county gets 5% of that. The school district doesn't get anything. So typically, from your taxes, you would send money to the schools, to the municipality, and the county.
Hmm.
The school district doesn't get anything from a tax abatement
What?
at all.
Explain that.
So when you have your all of this development that's going up,
Correct.
um, those buildings don't have to pay taxes for the first 10 years
Hmm.
at all, right? So there's no money coming to the municipality. There is no money coming to the school district. They can sometimes have those extended, so which is why you'll have some developments that have 30-year tax abatements. It just means we are developing the city, but
Correct.
nobody's paying for it.
Right. So, I mean, because development should bring in revenue,
Hmm.
should bring in money. But
Hmm.
it looks like all we're doing is building on the city because we're not developing anything. We're not pouring any money into the school. Because even with these tax abatements, does it have to, I know the city may do their, the tax abatement for them, but does it have to include the school board? Can they get a tax abatement but still have to pay into the Board of Education, or is it just a tax abatement across the board? We
It's
have
the tax
to.
abatement across the board, but I think it's in how you negotiate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to be able to attract
Yeah,
development, you want to attract business. Um, I personally, I don't think housing development is the greatest need for Patterson.
at all.
Right? It could have been small business development. It could have been like we could
Home
have
ownership.
had right, like we could have had a Walmart. Right, instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to go after an Amazon headquarters, why aren't we going after Walmart distribution?
Right.
Right? Because that brings jobs. It brings permanent jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Development jobs are temporary because once the project's over, people aren't working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So um, the district raises taxes it simply for that reason. And when we try to go back to the state for additional money, and I've sat in commissioners' offices and they've said you have the ability to raise taxes,
Mm-hmm.
but what we haven't done is what places like I think North did it. I know Jersey City definitely did it. Um, they raised their taxes. I think how much was it? 700 million, something crazy. It,
Hmm.
so they went up as high as they could go.
Yeah.
Um, so like the commissioner will tell us, well, you have the ability to raise your taxes another $80 million, which we would never do.
I
But
mean,
that percentage you see, it's a possibility that that can come down, um,
mm-hmm.
because it's the preliminary budget. So
Okay. But so you're saying though, even with the 8%, when the tax bill, it's more likely like a 1%, 2%. It's not like they're going to get an 8% tax increase.
right.
Okay. Okay. So I mean that I think eases some. I mean, a tax increase is a tax increase.
Hmm.
At this point, again, with the lack of services between our school board and the services we receive in the city, to constantly be taxed, our taxes going up, but our services are in the decline, like just
Hmm.
going down. Our city is dirty. All these things are happening. Our schools are underperforming, and the ones that we do have that are doing well, we're closing. It's like, okay, what are we doing with this with our money, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I want to halt just a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you so much for answering all these questions. The questions are rolling in, but you guys know, as much as we have, so much going on within our city, and a lot of it is upsetting and makes us very sad. We're going to pivot a little bit because while we're fighting for systems at the top, we want to be able to celebrate the people that are doing the work on the ground. And right now it's time for our community highlight. And this week, I want to highlight I don't she's not so much an organization, she's a small business, but she is a small business but a community advocate. I want to highlight tonight Shauna Marriage and her incredible business, A Better Market. For those of you who don't know, we have a healthy food store right here in the heart of Patterson. Her location is right in the fourth ward on Rosa Parks Boulevard, 215 Rosa Parks Boulevard. Shauna Mayer, for those of you who may not understand, Patterson is a food desert, right? And so that means that for residents here in Patterson, their access to healthy foods is far and scarce, to affordable healthy foods. We don't have a major grocery store within the city of Patterson. As you know, Pathmark is long gone. Those stores are long gone. And so for a lot of our residents, they are forced to utilize the resources within the city, and for them to really access healthy food at reasonable prices, at affordable prices, has been very hard. And so Shauna Manridge, in A Better Market, located again at 215 Rosa Parks Boulevard, she is our answer to the food desert. Her store sells fresh produce. She accepts food stamps. She does the program with food stamps. I believe it's something bucks. I can't think of the name of it, where they get extra money towards their purchase when they're using their food stamps. If you haven't seen, Shauna wrote a great op-ed piece and Tap Into It Patterson about policy around food desert and a new policy that's happening within the state, but us really delving into making sure that our communities have access, whether it's through a prescription with a doctor, whether it's through coupons, whatever it is. She believes and advocates for our community to have access to healthy food choices at a reasonable price. If you have not gone to her store, she's not just there to sell you fruit and vegetables, but she also does voter registration there. She also keeps you informed on what's happening within the community, specifically when it comes to access to healthy food. She is not just a business owner, but she is a community advocate, advocating for us to have access to healthy food within our community. So I want to give a round of applause to Shauna Marriage and A Better Market. I want to encourage the community to follow her on social media, visit her store, tell your family members, especially those who receive food stamps, that they can go there and their money can stretch throughout the month. And we know that what a lot of our family members and friends receiving food stamps does not last the whole month, but I know with shopping at A Better Market that the policies and store deals she does some, if you catch her on a certain day, Tuesday or Wednesdays, she does a $10 produce bag. And when I say she fill that bag with to the ancestors say enough, and if you know anything about filling it up to the ancestors say enough, she's making sure that your money is well spent and that you get everything you need. And so I just want to clap it up to Miss Marriage and to A Better Market, 215 Rosa Parks Boulevard, here in the great city of Patterson, New Jersey, in the heart of the fourth ward. Go out, be a support to her business, and also go and have a conversation with her, and she can give you some great healthy tips. She is the queen of DIY. She is the queen of you can do this at home. You don't have to go out and spend money. I can show you what you can do from in your cupboard, in your pantry, and you can do it at home. So we thank her for her work and thank her for her business. And I just want to clap it up to her. She is Unmuted's community highlight this week. Thank you, Shauna, and thank you for the great work that you're doing in the community. And we're going to keep it going because, as you guys know, this show is only 1 hour, but I see the community is asking questions, Kenny. So I do have more questions, but I'm going to go right into what the community is asking. Okay. And so one of the things that I let my guests know, this is not a I gotcha type platform. we have questions, and so when you come on this platform, you are expected, to answer right from the community. So yes, I prepare questions, but the community, they have a lot of questions. And so one is, okay, let me go. So one question, Roshan is asking, if you don't need to raise taxes, don't. He was like, so are we utilizing the 800 mil correctly? Now, one of the things you said, and I want to highlight, and I want you to be a little clear about that, because you said we're giving money towards the charter schools, we're giving money towards PCTI, but we're not just giving the money, right? That there, the
No,
money for
the money
those
has to
students to
follow the
go to
student.
those,
Has to
right?
follow the
It's
student. Yeah,
following the students. So
follow
we're
the
not
student.
just, because we don't
Right,
have those kids in our
right,
schools,
right.
correct?
And we don't.
Okay.
But we are responsible for things like transportation, things like so. There are some things that we're responsible for just because they're Patterson residents, and we are
Mm-hmm.
the municipality's school district. Um, so again, it's 178 million to charter, 40
Mm-hmm.
million to PCTI. You have your other fixed costs that are rising, like healthcare, um, um, facilities, all of those things. So again, when it's all said and done, we're probably down to
Mm-hmm.
about 300 million, right?
Okay.
For just, and that's for students. Um, so, and that doesn't include well, no, the salaries are in there too, which is probably a little over 100 million as well, probably about
Mm-hmm.
130, 150 million.
So what would you say to the residents that say we're top heavy, that a lot of money is going towards salaries, and maybe that's where we should start at the top, cutting some of those 150 plus salaries? What would be your response to that about the top heavy?
Um, so we, I hopefully, well, we'll be, because hopefully she doesn't. We did have an assistant superintendent leave. Um, we had actually we didn't fill some key so we had an assistant superintendent leave, our chief IT person left, um, and we didn't fill those positions. We also had like a chief of staff as well, that
Mm-hmm.
those positions just weren't filled. So it starts that way, um, and there aren't that many more up there, because you still have to have folks, you know, to oversee the folks that are in the schools as well. So,
Do
but
we
they're
need
not
so
filling.
many superintendents though? Like, we do we need that many?
We have right now, how many we have? Um, one, two, three. We have a deputy. So ideally, you're, what doesn't happen here. It used to happen here. So ideally, your deputy oversees everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your superintendent is really dealing with the state, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's reconfigured, you probably could, I don't know which one you would get rid of, but you probably could. But then you do also have, right, like your folks that are over curriculum
Mm-hmm.
and over special education, right? Those are still, the titles might be different in other districts, but it's the same level.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on the same level.
I mean, because we can't afford to lose teachers. I don't know if you know this. I was a sub for about 2 years at in the Patterson Public
Hmm.
Schools. And you know, I at some point was like permanent in class, like for eighth grade class.
Hmm.
Like they have virtual teachers where they were literally paying virtual teachers from other countries to teach math and all these different subjects. Like we need
We
teachers.
need teachers. Yeah.
We need, I mean, Kenny, that we were in classrooms learning math from people. We have a high population of Latino students, and they couldn't even understand what they was like, I Miss Kimmeshia, what are they saying? Like, our kids need face-to-face, hands-on
Hmm.
teachers that understand them from their
Hmm.
communities, culturally competent to the needs of our community. And we're talking about cutting jobs, and we're literally, some classes are being taught from a TV. How do we even
Yeah,
justify that?
yeah. And unfortunately, those types of positions, like math teachers and
Mm-hmm.
science, they have been traditionally difficult to fill those positions, um, because we get, folks in other districts just pay more money. Like so, but what we do also find out is like folks will leave, they'll go to Newark, and Newark's a different animal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's a completely different animal, and then folks will try to come back, but they want to come back at the rate that Newark was paying them.
I mean, you got a lot of people from Patterson that works in Patterson Public Schools, and I would love to see more of that. But between the tax increases, the low paying positions
Mhm.
as teachers, a teacher that works here in Patterson can barely afford to live here.
Right. Yep. I agree. I,
So it's like what? So Roshan is asking, and Roshan, I'm not clear on what you're asking. If I'm say it wrong, then tell me in the comments. He said, "Is it mandatory or just voted on?" I'm thinking he's talking about the tax hike. Is that a mandatory thing that we have to do, or is this just something that you guys say, okay,
no, no,
like what is?
no, no. And unfortunately,
Mm-hmm,
so if right now um, the projected loss of staff is about 200,
mm-hmm,
but that's with an 8% tax increase. If that tax increase is lower, that number's going to go up. So there were some things that happened, unfortunately, like um, where the board used reserves last year that we shouldn't have done.
mm-hmm,
Um, and last year, I think if they had done it last year, you wouldn't have had to do it this year, right? So they
mm-hmm,
they lowered the tax increase last year, but I had warned then, if you don't do it right this year, it's going to be worse next year,
mm-hmm.
right? Because we were on a downward trend with the tax increase, and again, that's because the district had just simply had not raised taxes in over 30 years,
Yeah.
and so and we knew it was going to happen once we regained state control. I mean local control, the state, because the state was in control, they just didn't raise the taxes. But
Mm-hmm.
we knew that when they gave us control back, at some point they were requiring us to,
They were requiring it. Okay.
yeah.
So with the tax increase, the proposed school cuts, to teachers, and because from what we understand, they're saying no one is exempt from being cut. So it's going to start from the top all the way to teachers, everyone. So we're looking at a possible tax increase and losing teachers because we need money. But from what we're seeing, we have a property that we're paying $268 for security and maintenance, right? On a vacant building that we don't
Mhm.
use. How do we justify that expense in raising taxes? We don't use this building. What can he explain to the people what's going on with that? Is that true? And
It's
if
true.
it's true, so then
It's
how
true
do
because
how do
the
we
because the
justify
law
that?
requires it. That's why. So we have to have fire watch, um, because there are no fire systems in the building. And it's a building that we've been trying to get rid of, but the building is just so old. Um, we did approve for the district to sell it if we can find a buyer. There's a lot of asbestos. There's also the fear, because it's when we were looking at redoing the building for ourselves, but that was a $50 million cost. It's historic, so you can't touch the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and so and that raises the price when you're doing the work. So hopefully we can get it sold, and get it sold soon.
Kitty, I know you if you can see my face, and all right, because I'm frustrated, my head is spinning, and it's just like it feels like we're just throwing money into the wind, and our kids are not getting what they need. I want to piggyback to the cuts because a lot of I got teachers on here, like we need teachers, right? And I did speak about me being a sub for about 2 years through one of the orgs,
Mhm.
company's ESS, and people want to know, does that work? Like, what's we? I see us contract a lot out. I think years ago when I first became a substitute teacher, I did it through Patterson Board of Education. I had to go to
Hmm.
Patterson Board of Education, do my certification, whatever there,
Hmm.
and did it there. Now that process is contracted out to another company.
Hmm.
Does that work? Is that cheaper than Patterson Public Schools handling their
So
subs?
at this point, like we would have to have a whole new a larger department to actually handle the work because of our absentee rate is so high. But they fill daily at about 90%, 95%. So with ESS doing it, if they fill it at that rate,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we could at this point fill if we brought it in house again. We would create a whole new department which has to be staffed. But I don't know that we would be able to fill at the rate that they are able to fill.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that, most people, because even like that, we contract for studies for the middle school model, we contract for this, we contract for that. Like, we do an audit. Could we look at like a real audit and see where money is being wasted? I mean, can we honestly say that all the money that we are getting is being fiscally dealt with fiscally responsibly? I know as taxpayers, I'm not a homeowner, but my landlord just let me know my rent going up, right? And so everybody gonna get hit with it.
Mhm.
Are we being fiscally responsible with this money?
Yeah. So one of the things I've been asking, and the board has asked, is that we actually do an audit. About actually when the superintendent first got here, it was the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I asked her to do an overall audit, like not just fiscal, but systems as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that we're not we don't have duplicate programs. Like
Right.
if it's cheaper for us to if one school is doing something and it's working, why does another school have a different program? Why aren't we
Right.
using the
Right.
same program and it's actually cheaper for us to buy
Mm-hmm.
that program? So that's the stuff that she's just taking forever to get it done. Um, but it's the stuff we asked for, um, and so I know some of the work was done because we did have an outside firm look at it because I don't want to say I don't trust people internally. Um, I don't know that folks are always as
Mm-hmm.
objective as they should be internally. So when someone is looking at it who has nothing to gain or lose,
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes better.
Yeah. Well, Sean, so to answer your question, the money that Kenny spoke of that was going out to PCTI and um the charter schools, that money follows those students. So it's not just us giving the money, it's the students that leave our district and go to them, but they're Patterson residents. So that's that money it's not voted on. That's just, what is that, the
Yeah,
law?
it's the law. Like
That's the law.
I really wish the state would come up with a way to
Mm-hmm.
get that money to those institutions separately,
Right, to get them their
so that
own funding. They're
right, so that
so
it
the
doesn't
charter schools are literally funded by us.
right because they are public schools, right? So, but I wish the state could just give them their money because then we wouldn't see it in our budget.
Right.
And I think a lot of people just see the number, the size of our budget. You wouldn't see that because
Yeah.
it would just go where it needed to go anyway. But the
Yeah.
money does, so we're basically a pass through.
Yeah. So yeah, it is mandatory. It's the state requires that, Roshan. So it's not something that the board gets to vote on. That's coming down from the state. So yeah. Yeah. The money follows the kid. So because that's even the same if you have a child that goes to a whole nother town
Hmm.
for they're from Patterson, but maybe it's a service there that better fits their needs and they're able to go to that school. That money would have to follow them. Like if they went to Paramus
Right,
or something, that money will follow them there too as well, right?
right,
But
right. Especially in the special ed space.
Right. And
Um,
that specifically to that. Mm-hmm.
right. So when we have students, there are students that we send all the way to Somerset, but the cost for special education is so high.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of these schools, it might be $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's expensive.
So let me ask you this, because one of the questions they asked was, and I mean, if you know, that would be great. That kids go to charter school and then for whatever reason they're returned to district. Do we get some of that money back when they come back? Like, let's say they come in the middle of the year. Is the charter school paying us back the money, or are they keeping that money for the school
It'll
year?
it'll follow them back. We'll see it the following year. We won't see it in the same year.
But it'll be for the year before.
Right. So which is right, because this is part of our funding issue, our fiscal issue.
Uh-huh. Right.
So when that student comes back, we
Mm-hmm.
don't see that money. It doesn't follow them immediately, but now we have to educate this child without the funding technically for
Without the
that year.
funding. Right. So now you say you're gonna see it the following year. Is it
Be a
for
fix-
that year, or you're gonna get some money retro?
So the money wouldn't leave again. So for the following year, we'd get some money back from the charter,
Okay.
and then we'll get whatever funding we get for that child from the state.
Okay. So it's almost like you might get some of it back. You're
We
not
might
gonna
get
get
some of
all
it
of
back. Right.
it. They look. I appreciate you, Kenny, for coming on. I'm calling you Kenny. Kenneth. This was awesome. I want to thank you, Kenny, for being on tonight. And I know we touched on it, but I want to end with that. Um, because I know Carla had asked the question, like how would parents know if this is halted or has it gone forward? But can you again tell parents is there anything they can do, or is it just right now we're in a waiting process until we can
So
find out what's going to happen?
if it's not if we don't get the emergent relief tomorrow,
Okay.
there's still a petition that has to be heard.
Hmm.
It's just a matter, it won't stop the process if we don't get the emergent relief. So
Okay.
that's what we're hoping for, because the goal is to stop the process. But
Right.
if
We
we
want to
don't,
stop
then the
it.
process won't stop. Um, and then in the long run, when the state or the commissioner hears it, if we're successful there, it just means that you got to go back
Hmm.
to what was, which is just doesn't make sense. But
Yes, it's
it's the
not going to make
process.
sense. Yeah, it's gonna.
But that's
So.
why there's a process to
Mhm.
this, right? Because you have to follow the steps explicitly, and the steps just weren't followed. Like we even need permission to leave to phase out school choice. We have to
Yeah.
get that permission from the state. There was no request for that. There's no request for closing the buildings. There's nothing sent to the county
Mhm.
superintendent. So there were a lot of steps missed.
Okay. All right, Kenny. Again, I want to thank you for coming on Unmuted, and just being open to having a very transparent and accountable um, dialogue with myself, but with the community as a whole. To the community, the next board meeting is April 15th, I believe.
Mhm.
And this is virtual. And I'll post if you want to speak at that meeting. There's a process to that. I will be posting it on Unmuted. What I will say to everyone is that, you know, it's going to take more than us talking about it on social media, you know, creating posts and just doing those things. But we really have to be very active and present when it comes to what's happening at the Board of Education. I don't have children in the school system currently. However, I look at every kid in this community as my kid, and I want them to have the best possible experience, the best educational experience that they can have, recreational, whatever it will give them, to give them a great quality of life, to see them thriving, doing well, and prepared to be impactful in their adulthood. And we know that this starts in school. And so I just want to encourage you all to stay active, to stay vigilant, and to hold our leadership accountable. And again, let's thank Kenneth Simmons for being here tonight. Kenny, is there any final words you want to say to the community before we sign off?
No, first, thank you for having me.
Mhm.
I told you I would be here.
Yes, and I thank you for being a man of your word.
Um, just know that, so Commissioner Teague and I, we're putting our best forward. There will be some parents joining us in court tomorrow.
Mhm.
So we're gonna fight this thing. Even if we're not successful tomorrow, we'll work harder at being successful in the long run.
Thank you. And guys, I will definitely check in with Commissioner Simmons to get an update, bringing you the unmuted truth of where we are and how we're going to move forward. But community, let's continue to be advocates for our community, our children, and hold our leadership accountable by asking those tough questions and demanding answers. And thanking Mr. Simmons for being here tonight. Community, thank you again. Our next taping is April 19th. We're going to delve into the mayoral election. I have some little things planned that I'm hoping are going to be solidified the next week or so. So I ask you to join me April 19th, 8 p.m. We're going to delve deep into the mayoral election and the four candidates, because we know we are upon election season. A lot is happening. A lot is at stake. And so Unmuted is committed to bringing you the information so that you can make informed decisions that will push our community either thriving or down. And so I want to make sure you get the information so you can make informed decisions. Thank you again. Paterson, New Jersey, stand up. Don't forget, like, share, follow. Everyone have a beautiful evening. Thank you and good night.
Good night.